So a friend of mine who's been homeless for many years and used forensic services, who now lives in his own flat and he's doing very well, he's a cartoonist and he used cartoons to describe some very difficult experiences and traumatic and a bit of a life story. And he's done that for people with learning disabilities and people who've used mental health services. And I will be putting the book online. This is an advert. So that people can download it, and the money that you pay for it, downloading it, goes to the charity Heads On, which I'm chair of. I'll come on to that charity in a minute because it's an NHS charity, and I'm very torn about NHS having charities, but sadly it seems to be a necessity. So, why did I start getting active in the service user movement? Well, I started when I was at school. What happened, I was quite strapping when I was to make decisions for themselves around self-governance. And that's one of the basic lessons we learned all that time ago. And all those years later when I went to do battle, fortunately I was mature enough, I'd like to think, and I was open enough, and I was quite impressed with some of the stuff that I saw at the ECT suite. But I'll come on, because that is quite a worrying statement to make, but I'll come on to something else later. So one of the things that the Capital project designed was the wellbeing approach to involvement. And in those days, to get involved had to guarantee that you were going to get well and stay well. In the early days, getting involved was actually quite a difficult thing to do because when I told my GP I was going to be paid for my experience of breaking down and distressing experiences and to share those and what worked for me, he actually wanted to give me a blood test because he thought my medication wasn't working. And in those days, basically it was almost, so it all becomes a little bit hijacked. And I think Tom Shakespeare may have mentioned the hijacking of our language and our ideas. And people maybe read the first 2 chapters of what we say, but not the last 3 or 4, which is quite essential. So unless you've got money in your pocket, purpose to a day and a date at the weekend, really the service isn't helping you that much. It's not that much more complicated than that. However, because of accountability to the public and public money being spent, people start to make formulas and so on and so forth, which sometimes goes against what we really stand for. Having said that, I get very concerned that the service user movement, such as it is, if it is a movement, but the people who are led by other service users in a group, as a collective, individuals that have been around a long time, my heroes like, Peter Campbell and Frank Bangay and so on, those individuals who I see as my leaders, and I'm part of a leadership. I remember a CAMS service being told that they should offer 1 or 2 less counselling sessions for the young people to reduce the waiting list. And I'm so proud that the professional staff in that CAMS service said, when you offer 1 or 2 less chemotherapy sessions, we'll start offering 1 or 2 more less counselling sessions. Because we're talking about not just life and death, but quality of life here. And so when we talk about being listened to, and we talk about nothing about us without us, that means policy development. It means service development. It means commissioners need to listen when they're commissioning to what we're saying works for us and what doesn't work for us. If you look at item 4 on the manifesto, work together with people from socially deprived and marginalised communities. No matter how good a psychologist you are, your practice being of an excellent standard, innovation in NHS trusts, if people are hungry, who will be part of your clinical team, but we can signpost you to other people who offer peer support in an entirely different way, who are not part of your clinical team, not part of the establishment, and will be matched because you look like them and sound like them. So, in short, that was allowed to happen because there was a grassroots kind of movement saying, I want peer support that I can recognise, that I think will support me, not what you're offering me. Not what you're, it's almost like peer support being done to you again. So that was quite controversial, but I would say that was an inclusive and really good way of working. And then lastly, because you've had some governance issues, I shouldn't smile really, but I know your AGM's probably a very good AGM, but there's a whole issue of service users really being now starting to infiltrate and work within the establishment at governance level. but on the right basis, the wellbeing approach to involvement in our trust, Sussex Partnership Trust.